Welcome to a video to show you how to set up a two-node Windows 2016 cluster. So eventually what we'll do is set up a video for the SQL installation to show you an SQL cluster between two nodes. So first thing we need to do is start off with our three machines we need. We need a domain controller, we need a node 1 and a node 2, all 2016 servers. The domain controller itself, just a simple domain setup. Both computers joined to the domain and a domain controller. The difference here, because we're running a virtual environment, we want to set up shared disks between the two nodes. So you see right here we have a C and an E drive. This is going to be the operating system, and this is going to be for SQL once we get there. The same thing with this one. We want to have an OS drive and one for SQL when we get there. So what we want to do is we want to use this machine to be our iSCSI server. So we could share disks using iSCSI, so using the network essentially. So we'll go to File and Storage Services, go to Server, go to Volume, and we have a couple of disks. We have the OS, we have a 150 gig disk and a 100 gig disk. Now these disks will be used to create the virtual volumes in Windows, they call them VHDs, to present to the network as iSCSI volumes for these two nodes. So let's minimize this for a second. We need to go and make sure we have some prerequisites set up. So one thing you want to do is set up your network. So this one is node 11, so IP address. This node will be 12. And this node will be 10. So we have 10, 11, 12. 10 being the domain controller. So let's minimize that. Minimize that. Okay, so now what we have to make sure we do is the domain controller has to have the iSCSI services installed. So you need to bring up your server manager. Your server manager will usually be on your start button. Server manager. I have everything on my taskbar here. So what we want to do is add roles. Now I already have it installed, so I'm just going to guide you through it. So you say next, next. That's the machine we're installing it on. Next. You want to go to File and Storage Services, and then open up File and iSCSI Services, and you want to check off iSCSI Target Server. Click Next, and then do Next again and install. That's all you need on the domain controller. Now let's go to Node 1. Now Node 1, just to get some things out of the way, let's get two items installed. So the first item installed will be that next, 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 and you want to choose node 1 because that's where we are, node 1, and next. We don't need anything in the first one. What we need is we need failover clustering. So you check off failover clustering, install, and yours won't have the word installed there. You click next, and then next, and then install. And that's it for that. So same with this node, we want to install the failover clustering again. So you go add role, next, next, you choose node 2 because that's where we are, next, and we don't need anything there. We just need the failover clustering. You go next, install, and then you're done. That's all we need there for now. Now let's go back to the domain controller. File and Services, we want to go to disks. Now we have two disks plus the OS. So right now we want to create some iSCSI data storage. So we're going to focus on using the 100 gigabyte disk. So let's go to iSCSI and let's create a virtual disk. So we want to choose the 100 gigabyte disk. Just going to bring this up here further. Next. And this first disk we will call SQL data. Next. we'll give this 10 gigabytes. And we have an existing iSCSI cluster. I won't use that. I'll say new. And this is what you would do because you won't see one. So new one, we're going to call DB cluster. Next. And now we need to add the hosts. So you should see them pop up. If you don't, you type in node 1 and you can browse for it. So we'll choose that, choose node 1, and we want to add node 2. Again, if you don't see them, you want to manually add them. But at this point, you could pause and go over here and go to tools, because again, the prerequisites. We want to go to iSCSI and we want to go to discovery. When you do the discovery, I already have them here. So you're going to, I'll pull them out here, show you what you would have to do. So you do discover portal. We want to type the IP address of the domain controller, so 192.168.0.10. Now in this case, the domain controller is our iSCSI server, so that's why we want that. Click Advanced, choose Microsoft iSCSI Initiator, and then the address of your machine, which is the only drop down there anyway. Once you click OK again, you should be able to go to targets, and I'll refresh here. It will go and find out, and it should say, come on, let it refresh itself here. So I will disconnect because I want to, there you go. So when you refresh now, it should go back to the server and say inactive. That's what it should say. So let's go to node 2 and let's go remove what we have, because I previously had a configuration. So I'm going to disconnect this one just so it's gone, and I'm going to discover, and I'm going to remove, just to give you a fresh start here. So you should see nothing. As you see, nothing and nothing. You want to discover portal, again, the iSCSI server, advanced, iSCSI initiator, and the address of this machine. Click OK, and then OK again. Now when we go to targets, if you refresh, it should then pull up the machine and say inactive. It should, okay, let's go back to node 1 and let's click connect. Okay, now the defaults are there. We want to click advanced. We want to choose Microsoft iSCSI Initiator. You want to choose the address of the machine, which is the only drop down, and the address of the server, which again, the only drop down. Click OK, click OK again, and it should be connected. That's it. Click OK, we're done then. That's it. Let's go to node 2, same thing. Connect, leave the defaults, advanced, change that to Microsoft iSCSI Initiator, the address of the machine, and the address of the server. Click OK. OK, connected. We click OK, and that's all we need to do there for now. So now you see no disks. You see just the 2 disks that the OS started with. Let's go back to the domain controller now. And we have the both nodes connected. So now that's when in here you can add your nodes. So we already have them. So if I were to remove them, right, we click add, it will then show them in here again. So now you're going to choose node 1 and node 2. So this is what you should see. So now both your nodes are going to be connected to this, and the reason why you're doing this, you're setting up an iSCSI share. Essentially, it's just sharing. So you're sharing these disks with these 2 servers because they need to have the disk shared to them so they can do a cluster eventually. So let's click next. If you need to add challenge handshake protocol, you can do that, and that gives a little more security. In our lab, I'm not going to bother configuring that, but if you wish to put a password, you can. Next, and then create. So now what we've done is we've created the DB disk data, SQL data. We need to do this several more times. So again, the 100 gigabyte disk, next, DB logs, so SQL logs. Next, we want to create, just so we see separation of disks, I'm going to say 11 gigabytes. And we were going to use the DB cluster. Okay, so there, create. And there. Let's create a third disk. Same thing, 100 gigabyte disk. And this one will be SQL temp. This one will be 15 gigabytes. Using DB cluster. Create. Now, if you don't see the 2 there, you shouldn't. You should only see the DB cluster. I had this set up previously. New SCSI disk again. Again, the E drive. Next, this one here will be SQL back. We'll call it backup. And we should use the capital L like we've been doing. Next, this one here, let's give this 20 gigs. Again, DB cluster and create. So now we have our data, our logs, our temp, our backup. Now we need a quorum disk. So let's go to E again. Next, I want to call this quorum. Quorum. Next, and we'll change this to megabytes because we only need about 500 megabytes. And next. Choose DB cluster and create. Now, as cleanup, I'm going to scroll down here and notice how we only have DB cluster, right? So let's go view all targets. I'm going to take the iSCSI cluster out of here. So I'm going to remove this one just to take complexity out of things. So you don't have to go and do anything here. That was just what I did just to clean up. So let's scroll back up. Now notice how they're all not connected. Let's refresh. Refresh again. So nothing's connecting. Let's go back to node 1. Pull up server manager. I'm going to go to tools, iSCSI initiator, and it says inactive. So let's go to connect again. Okay, advanced, iSCSI. 11, 10, click OK, and the target is not there. So that's probably what I just did. So let's go here, kill this, go back to tools, iSCSI initiator. Let's go back to discovery, and let's click on discover port. Refresh. Discover portal 192.168.0.10. Advanced. Let's choose iSCSI. Click OK. And refresh. Refresh. Let's go targets. Refresh. Inactive. Let's connect again. Advanced. You want to choose iSCSI 11 and 10. They're the only drop downs there, so it's not like it should have anything else sitting there. Let's click there. It's connected now. So it's just because of the last one I had set up. So let's click there. Let's go to node 2. Pull up server manager. Go to tools. iSCSI initiator. Let's remove this by disconnecting it. Make this a little cleaner for it. Let's go to discovery. Let's discover again. Type again the iSCSI server address and advanced. Let's choose iSCSI and the only drop down there. Click OK. Click OK. Let's go back to targets. Let's refresh. And let's click next. Advanced again. iSCSI 12, 10. Again, it's the only drop downs. Click OK. It's now connected. So let's close that. Minimize that. let's go to this server, minimize this, and let's go back to the domain controller, and let's right click again, and they're all connected. So there. So we have now set up our iSCSI disks, and we're all ready for clustering. So we minimize that. Let's go to node 1. Now what we want to do is I would suggest that we shut down node 2. Now we don't have to shut it down. We could just not include it, but let's shut it down. So this way it's out of the way. Go back to node 1. Wait for this thing to be turned off. There you go. So node 1 has 2 disks. So let's go to computer manager and let's refresh the disks. Okay, so let's bring this one online, this one online, this one online, this one online, and the last one online. So now they're all online. Let's go back up to the top. Let's initialize. And they're all going to come on as GPT. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's right. So that's 5 disks. They're all GPT initialized. Now we want to format. So simple volume. Next. 10 gigs. We want to change this letter to K. Next. And let's name this one SQL data. Let's go with the capital too. There. Perform quick format. Done. Finish. There's K. This one here. It's 11 gigs. We want to go L. And we want to call this one SQL logs. Finish. And this one here we'll call M. New simple. 15 gig. M. This one here is SQL temp. Next. Finish. And the last one, before the quorum that is, this one is N, and this one here we'll call SQL backup. Okay, go back there to make that one a capital L. Consistency. And the quorum. So let's do a quorum disk now. This one here, we'll make it Q. Because quorum. And because we can. Okay, so there's quorum. We have all our disks. Now, just to take a pause from this, it's going to bring up a document that I will share. This is something to use when you're building a cluster. I usually use this every time I'm building. So I start building the SQL cluster when I install. So when we do the SQL install, I'll bring this document up and show. So I will share this on that document, on that video. So we'll go further down. What I wanted to show you was this is why I do the disks the way I do. So we have the installation of SQL will go on to the E drive, and then on the F drive, in this case here, F. So in this case here, we're going to go K. So let's change this to K. K. This would be L. This would be M. And because same disk, M again. And this would be N. So that's what it would look like on our next video that we do with showing install of SQL. So I'll close that. I just wanted to show you that document. That's what that's for. I will freely add it to the add it to the video for download. So this is what you can do. You can use that. Have all your disks set up this way. So now that we have the disks set up, they look like local disks. K, L, M, N, and Q. So now they look like local disks. That's what they appear to be On this server, they'll be there as well, just because right now without a cluster, each one will try to own the disk and it could corrupt the disk. So let's turn that one off like we have done, and let's bring the cluster online. So let's open up the cluster administrator or the failover cluster manager. So you can go to Start, Windows, failover cluster manager. I've added it to my taskbar, so we'll bring it up. So we create cluster. Next, and node 1. Okay, node 1. So next, and you want to configure, no, so we don't need any support right now, so let's leave that for now. Next, cluster name, and I want to name this one, let's name this one DB cluster. And then we want to put an IP address. So because we have 10, 11, 12, let's set this up 13. So this will be address 13. So let's go next. And right now, let's go here to domain controller. I just want to show you something here. So when you're creating a cluster, a new computer record will be created. So we will watch that while we do this. So let's click next. So it's building it. Let's go here and let's refresh here. And there's the DB cluster. So that's get created. And if you ping, it will respond with that address. So when everything's set up properly, using the right account, it will create an account, it will put it in DNS as well, and it's all up and running. So we successfully created a cluster. So now we have a cluster created, no errors, everything looks good. Let's go down, let's go storage. So let's add a disk. So there's no disk, right? So we want to add a disk. Add a disk, and what we want to do is add them all, and now it will automatically create one as a, it'll try and create one as your quorum. So what we want to do is find out what one is the quorum. So disk 6, this one here, would be the quorum. So we said 10 gigabytes was the data, so let's look for 10 gigabytes. Let's name that one SQL data with a capital L. So that's data. 11 was logs. So let's rename this one. Okay. 15 was temp. That's number 4 or 5 here. So let's name that one SQL temp. Okay, and the 20 was backup. So SQL back. Okay, and the last remaining one is 500 megabytes. This one here is called the quorum. So now you know exactly what the disks are. So if you happen to add disks and you're not sure which ones are which, probably be a good idea to find out what disk numbers they are. So let's go here. So as you can see, disk number here, they label them differently. So the disk number 2 would be what we saw in Windows. So when you go in here, so if they were all the same size, disk number 2 would be that one, and so forth. So that's how you can easily identify them by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So quorum there is number 6, right? So what we want to do is go here, and you want to click. So you right click on DB cluster or your cluster name, more actions, and configure quorum settings. So now we want to say next, And you want to use default? No, we want to select a quorum witness. Next. And do not configure. We do. Let's configure a witness disk. You don't have to, but you can. So we want to choose this one as the quorum disk. Now, I've set up clusters from 2003, 2008, 2012, so forth. So I've always added a quorum. You don't have to have one from my understanding, depending on what you're doing with it. So I've always added a quorum disk because it helps keep the cluster in sync. So this is what I do. I set them up this way. Okay, so right now node 1 owns them. So now let's pull node 2 online. Okay, node 2 will boot up, and they're booting up off a shared SSD. So they should boot up pretty quick. And the good thing is now, from here, we can add another node. So once node 2 is up, let's add, next, and let's type in node 2. Add, and it's looking for it, it finds it. Node 2 is going to be added. And you notice how the K, L, M, N, and Q are still there. Double check. There you go. And node 2 has been added. So now we have a 2-node cluster with the disks all set up and ready to go. Log on to this server. And we've now met the objective of this video. We now have a 2-node cluster with a domain controller up and running. Let's pull up the cluster tool, or the Failover cluster manager. And we should be able to see the DB cluster. We see the roles. We haven't got any roles yet. That's something SQL will create that. And we have node, and we have our disks. So let's see what happens here. So now let's open up the disk manager, and you only see 3 disks. Let's go over here. We see all the disks. And let's go over to node 2, and let's go back, and let's say you want node 1 to pause and get rid of all its roles. So it's draining, it's paused. Now when you go here, A, L, M, and Q, node 1 doesn't have them. Let's go back to node 2 and do it from node 2 this time. Let's fail them back. So let's say resume and fail back roles. So it's trying, it's heading there to do it. And when we go back to node 1, see what it's doing here. Node 1 is up. So now, are they here? Not yet. So the disks are probably still failing over. Okay, they're all in node 2 still. So even though it said to fail back the roles, they're all still there. So let's refresh. And let's say move to select node. And let's move them back to node 1. So there's another way of doing it. So the quorum is still in node 2, but node 1 now has all of this. KLMN. So there you go. So now we have a 2-node cluster running. And if we want to fail over to this one, we could say more actions and simulate failure, and it's not moving it. So we can also just move it over, force it. So best possible node, and it brings it back to 2. So there's our 2-node cluster up and running as promised. So hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Anything more you want to know, anything I missed, anything you want to see again, I could definitely add it. Hopefully the volume on this video is much better than what it's been before. Just trying my best to spread the knowledge. So thanks for watching. See you next video.